foreign oil. It will require sacrifices, but and this is most important, it will work. Bluntly, I must remind you that we have not made satisfactory progress toward achieving energy independence. Energy is absolutely vital to the defense of our country, to the strength of our economy, and to the quality of our lives. Such vulnerability at present or in the future is intolerable and must be ended.
Our excessive dependence on foreign oil is a clear and present danger to our nation's security.
And here we have a serious problem. America is addicted to oil, which is often imported from unstable parts of the world.
For more than 30 years, we've been hearing that this is a problem. Why hasn't something been done? America is more dependent now than ever on foreign suppliers of energy. Is there any solution to this problem? If there is, why hasn't the problem been solved?
I mean, given all the technology we have in this world, it's remarkable that we haven't had an alternative to the combustion engine or an adaptation to the combustion engine that makes the petroleum last longer. And many have long thought that oil companies have bought up patents to allow them to continue to make more money. No one's proven it.
If technology exists to improve gas mileage, why hasn't someone seen it?
The man came to the airfield one day with a 1946 Buick Roadmaster. He had invented a carburetor that was water injected and could get close to 100 miles per gallon. He told us that Shell Oil Company had bought the patent from him, which made him a millionaire. Shell told him he could keep the one on this Buick, but could build no more. Now, the Buick Roadmaster was a very heavy car. Can you imagine what that would save on the lightweight cars of today and our energy consumption? Also, the oil industries would have gone broke. My question, whatever happened to this invention? It's been over 55 years, and I'm sure if it was put on the market with today's technology, it could be even more improved. Sincerely, K.R. Cundy, senior citizen.
There has long been a legend of a water-injected carburetor that enabled amazing gas mileage. Did this man see it?
Well, when he drove out that day, we were racing our cars, and we didn't think much of him. We saw this Buick. It was fairly new. I thought maybe he was going to race us too. But he just sat there and he talked to us, and pretty soon he said, I can make this car get close to 100 miles a gallon, and we thought he was just, just blowing steam, And he raised the hood and we looked at it. I don't know, it just looked like a bunch of crap on there, But anyway, we looked at it and didn't think much of it because it was just a gadget as far as we were concerned, so we didn't think too much more about it. Had to have been 48 or 49. Yeah, those old Buicks, it had 4 holes on the fenders, and that's how you could tell whether it was a 3-holder was a special and a 4-holder was a Roadmaster, and they were big, they were heavy. He mentioned that he had built 3 or 4 of them. He put them on a couple of other cars. We were sitting there talking about it, and he said that Shell told him he couldn't rebuild anymore. And he says, they bought my patent and made me a millionaire.
The book Fuel Economy of the Gasoline Engine, which was published by the Shell Oil Company, documents that Shell scientists were able to achieve 149.95 miles per gallon on a 1947 Studebaker. This book is out of print and has disappeared from the Library of Congress. Here are the pages. The Shell Oil Company would not talk to the filmmakers, but in February of 2007, they were able to interview a retired Shell scientist living in England.
My name is David Blackmore, and I worked for quite some years in Shell research. I edited the book called Fuel Economy of the Gasoline Engine. And we normally would test our fuels in real or sometimes prototype vehicles and engines that we would have contact with the motor industry, the motor manufacturers. It began in one form or another 60 years ago, just before World War II, 1939.
A race to see how much gasoline we need to run our car 1/4 of a mile.
Doing the first vehicle just before the war, I think that particular one was in fact a converted vehicle from a road vehicle at the time, and I think that first one was something like 49, 50 miles per US gallon. When the specials began, it was they managed to get into the hundreds of miles per gallon, but there was still some quite excitement in a few years before the 1,000 mile per gallon barrier was broken, which I think didn't happen till the late 1970s. 1,000 mile per gallon barrier was broken, which happened till the late 1970s.
Feeling pressure from Americans, call the oil executives to explain themselves.
Could we have quiet, please? I shall not administer an oath today.
Mr. Chairman, I would like the committee to vote on whether we swear
There will
in.
be no vote. That's not in order at all. It's the decision of the chairman, and I have made that decision.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we swear in the witnesses.
And I rule that out of order.
I second the motion.
That's the last we're going to hear about that because it's out of order.
I tell you, because it was really just a gimmick to us. You know, we didn't think anything would ever come of it.
Buick Roadmaster, curb weight 4,465 pounds. Hummer H3, curb weight 4,700 pounds. The Roadmaster weighs almost as much as a Hummer. What if a Hummer could get 100 miles to the gallon? Did Shell Oil really bury this technology?
They've done a pretty good job covering it up. People who've looked haven't been able to find those patents on the record.
In 1946, a man living within 20 miles of Modesto, California, where Ken Cundy raced cars, registered this patent.
This particular device is a very simple concept that takes water and humidifies it and allows that humidified air to be drawn into a carburation system, such as an internal combustion engine in an automobile. Conceptually, I can see it does a few things. When you add humidity to the air, it allows the thermal properties of the air to cool the engine and make a more even combustion process, which prevents pre-ignition, and that's one of the claims in the patent. So
it may readily be seen that with a device of this kind, higher compression ratios can be utilized, materializing more power and fuel economy, and also permitting the use of lower-grade fuels.
That alone is a big improvement in the efficiency of an engine. We all have had the knock in our automobiles before, and so this reduces that. It can also increase power, I believe, by allowing you to use a lower octane gas or just increase your torque. Either one is possible. So I see fuel economy opportunities with this.
Why don't we know about this technology?
Why? That's the question I'm asking, and why I wrote the letter. I said, what happened to that?
Who would you call if you had this idea?
Would you call Shell scientists? What if they had a laboratory less than 10 miles from your house?
Here at the Agricultural Laboratory near Modesto, California, it's a modern laboratory, complete to the last detail.
The old Shell building still exists today. The inventor's son was originally excited to participate in this film, but will no longer return our phone calls.
I believe that maybe Shell wants to sell gas.
Representatives from Shell Oil declined to speak to us.
Picture here of Tom, and Jim told him just go ahead and work on it. Don't bother about anything else. So the car belonged to Jim Pack, and so Jim bought all the parts, anything he needed to go on there. So that tank was pressurized to such a point and also heated. You had a certain amount of heat and the pressure, and the two together caused the nothing but vapor to go in for the burning, and so that's what he got 100 miles per gallon by that.
It can't be possible, but it is possible. My name's Ernie Pierce, and for a living I work for Continental Airlines. Started out as a mechanic and worked my way up to where I was a technical supervisor. Along came this article in the paper about a gentleman named Tom Ogle down in El Paso, Texas, and he invented a car that would get 100 miles to the gallon. And so I was really interested in this idea. So I read this article and it showed a picture of his car, and the more I read, the more interested I got in what he was doing. So I had an old 72 Pinto sitting in the backyard, and I said, I'm going to try this thing. So I took this 72 Pinto and got myself a propane tank for my little project. So I took the propane tank and took it to a guy and had a chamber put on the bottom, like Tom did with his. One thing you have to understand, the only thing that makes a cylinder pop is vapor. When you run a carburetor, the only thing that makes a cylinder pop is vapor. When you run fuel injection, the only thing that makes that engine run is vapor. It's whatever vaporizes in that cylinder under pressure that burns. Raw gasoline will not burn. If you flood a car, you can't get it started, and it's got all the gasoline in the world in it. So if you only put vapor in the cylinder, you're going to get 100% burn. It's not anything like the car that I worked on, but I can give you an example of what I would do if I wanted to run this car on vapor. I'd take the suction line and I'd hook it up to a tank here so it was pulling a vacuum into this suction line. It would run through the air conditioning compressor out the pressure line. I'd put a reducer on it and bring it around and put a vapor carburetor here and run it through a vapor carburetor. So I run on vapor. If I ran out of gas vapor, I'd flip a switch and I'd run on gasoline. So that's a secret. Working on this project, I went to Las Vegas and was sitting in a parking lot out there, and out of the clear blue sky, he hollers at me, "Did you ever hear the story about Tom Ogle?" And I said, "Well, what about him?" And he said, "Well, he's the guy that invented the vapor car." I said, "Okay." He said, "They found him in the desert dead from an overdose of drugs." I said, "Is that right?" He said, "Well, you don't think for a minute that they'd let one man change the way they do business with gasoline, do you?" It just dawned on me, why would that guy holler at me? I never prompted anything about anything with this. Now, isn't that amazing? I was ready to run this way. I had the manager of Riverside Raceway ready to set that up with the press and everything. And this man told me, he says, "I'll give you 6 months and you're a dead man." But when you find out that Tom's not here anymore and they found him out in the desert dead, that's where they found him, that opens your eyes a little bit. We'd gone back home and I'd continued working on the car. But about 2 weeks after that, my wife noticed them first. Who were those two guys sitting out in front of the house all the time? I have no idea. They just made themselves very visible. We knew after a while, after about 2 weeks, they were watching us, and we knew why. There's two guys sitting across the street with a video camera. You know who they are. Why else would they be sitting there? It's pretty obvious. That was enough. I just let it go. I didn't want my wife to get hurt, and I didn't want to get hurt, so I just took all the parts off the car, put the car up for sale, and sold the car.
There years and years, it has dust all over it. You take this magazine and you tell me what you think. The magazine was a 1953 issue of Cars, The Mystery of the 200 mile per gallon Pogue carburetor. Wow, let's see what this says. Wasn't sure about this, so I got involved with it, and just briefly, the atomizer goes into a warmer, goes into a sort of a compression ratio and another warmer and back in and then straight down this tube, and that's a butterfly right there. And I'm thinking, well, why can he do this and not have a problem and I can't? So what did I do? This is Charles Nelson Pogue, Mystery 200 mile per gallon Pogue carburetor. Now remember, this book was 1953, okay?